Welcome to Lesson 2 in Unit 5, Tiny Flyers. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how does the hummingbird know where to go? In this lesson, students investigate how birds find their way when they migrate by making sun compasses. Students figure out that birds use patterns of the sun and stars to help them navigate during migration. And students make connections to the storyline by explaining how the ruby-throated hummingbird is able to migrate across the ocean. There are several opportunities for ELA and social studies cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 5 teacher guide. This lesson will take approximately 5 to 6 days to complete. For the engage portion of the lesson, you'll begin by asking students what they have figured out about hummingbird migration so far and what questions they still have. You'll revisit the driving question board and add any new questions and highlight others about how hummingbirds know where to go when they migrate. You'll tell students that they are going to start investigating these questions. You'll allow students to turn and talk, then share a few answers with the whole class. Record students' ideas, even inaccurate ones, on a chart so students can revisit and revise their ideas later. For the explore portion of the lesson, you'll ask students if anyone knows how you might use things outside to know where to go. You'll then show students the video of the sun moving across the daytime sky and ask questions about what they notice and what might help them find their way around. You'll discuss the 4 cardinal directions. You can then take the opportunity to post and discuss the cardinal directions vocabulary card. You'll ask students how they think they could figure out which way the sun is appearing to move across the sky. For the explore portion of the lesson, you'll set up the sun compass investigation. You can pause this video here to note the materials needed for this investigation. There is a teacher tutorial showing the setup and detailed procedure for this activity. Note that this activity will take a full day to complete. You and your students will go outside to make observations of the sun's position 3 to 5 times throughout the day. For the explain portion of the lesson, you'll invite students to gather in a circle and share their findings from the sun compass investigation. Use the provided questions to guide your discussion around the question, how does the hummingbird know where to go? The goal for this class discussion is to analyze student data and find patterns that help students explain how hummingbirds find their way when migrating. By the end of the discussion, students should understand that birds use patterns of the sun and stars to help them navigate during migration. You'll then use the Read Aloud guide to read, How do birds find their way? Note that you will only be reading up to page 17 at this point. To begin the elaborate portion of the lesson, you'll ask students questions about the sun and what they might know about the nighttime sky. You'll show students an image of the night sky and ask them questions about what patterns they notice. You'll add their answers to the Lesson 2 summary chart. You'll then use the Read Aloud guide to read the remaining pages of How do birds find their way? You'll ask students to use what they've learned through the investigation and reading the book to update the hummingbird story that they started in Lesson 1. For the evaluate portion, you'll have students complete the Patterns in the Sky student journal page. To support student sense-making across the unit, you'll orient students back to the driving question board. You'll ask them, what did we learn about how and why hummingbirds migrate? What questions do we still have about hummingbirds? Refer to the Section 1 performance levels in the assessment tracker for guidance on formative and summative assessments for student progress in this section. Have students use the self-check form to evaluate their own learning in this section. This is an instructional tool that can be used as a metacognitive practice for students to reflect on their learning, express their engagement or excitement levels for the topics they have learned so far, and reflect on their science identities and community. By the end of this lesson, students will have used observations to describe how birds use patterns of the sun and stars to navigate during migration. In Lesson 3, students will continue investigating the ruby-throated hummingbird by examining how birds build nests for their babies. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.